Hello, welcome to the Mildly Forge Boomer Show podcast. I'm Nero, aka Oranforge. I'm joined by Hassan, aka Mildly Creative.
Hello.
And I'm also joined by Matthew, aka Big Boomer. His internet kind of poo poo, because Virgin Media kind of cringe. And we're joined by Jake Hodgkiss, aka Vulcan.
Hello.
And they're basically all going to be permanent members of the podcast now because I can't be bothered putting with certain people in the title anymore because that's effort. Anyway,
I mean,
how we
hey,
doing, guys?
we just have the better boomer now.
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. Yeah, easy. The Great Replacement, whatever those weird right-wing people in America keep saying.
Yeah, guys.
a lot
Because,
from Europe as
because
well.
there is a plan to replace everybody in every country with immigrants because, that's how population numbers work.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Am
But,
I gonna die?
You're getting replaced by people like me, Jake. Dangerous
Yeah.
foreigners.
Wait, does that mean you're gonna do my job for me? That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh god.
I
Sorry.
mean,
I don't have to
if
work.
we get into like the Great Replacement stuff, we get onto like ethnic cleansing and stuff, and it gets just really
Yeah.
messy. It's
Yeah.
not a nice topic to
Not
discuss.
a nice topic to talk about. But anyway, getting on to the actual stuff we were talking about, I put this is the most stupidest thing I've ever put for a podcast. It's J.R.R. Tolkien's genius, the Tory U-turn, trickle-up economics, barristers on strike, and Overwatch 2. So,
Barristers now.
yeah, everyone's on strike, you know? You never know.
Well,
It's the
Let's not talk about how bad trains are to get currently,
Yeah.
man. Holy
But
shit.
we'll talk about Liz Truss's amazing speech later and how she talked about this anti-growth coalition consisting of Labour, the Lib Dems, SNP, and the militant unions, because unions are very militant apparently. But I don't know. Starting off with a
Can we
nice.
also talk about Nicola Sturgeon calling the stories like disgusting or whatever?
Hell
like,
yeah,
I
that's
forget
based
what word
anyway.
it is.
What the hell? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just based in red pilled. But like, anyway, starting off with a nice later topic. J.R.R. Tolkien's genius. My take is basically, I'd make the argument that the majority of modern fantasy is because of Tolkien, or like interpretations of what he wrote. I know. We'll see. I'm opening up the floor now.
Modern high fantasy, yes.
Yes, that's pretty much what I was saying.
Absolutely. He laid the groundwork for it, right? I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's entirely based off this because we've seen plenty of different interpretations of many different things.
Yeah.
Cough Harry Potter.
Yep.
Which, while I'm not saying it's amazing or even comparatively good or anything, but it's a very different style of high fantasy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Although you could argue it's more modern fantasy, but
Yeah.
that's
I
when we
mean,
get into
yeah.
definitions, and it doesn't really matter. Fantasy is fantasy, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, the modern interpretation of orcs is pretty much because of Tolkien, and, like, the Uruk-hai and, like, the Ologs, which are the trolls, pretty much, like, basis for modern fantasy, I'd argue, to a degree.
Western fantasy, yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen like I think Japan takes like the whole orcs are like pig people
Yeah.
vibe for it, whereas and then we have D&D, which is another mainly Western fantasy concept that takes
Yeah.
orcs as just people, really.
Yeah.
They're just another group of people, which do you not remember that time where some absolutely base journalist said orcs were a racist caricature of black people?
Oh, yeah,
Not
yeah,
realizing
because...
comparing
my
orcs
God.
to black people is
Yes, that's the
racist
thing.
to begin with.
Oh, so moronic, aren't they? Honestly.
Baffles me that people have
Yeah.
that small of a brain.
Yeah, I mean...
Just to suggest that it's racist as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even making that comparison, you are a racist, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Precisely the point, and it's dumb to make that interpretation. But
I mean, but the point being completely aside that there are plenty of other like really cool black characters in D&D
Yeah,
or just
yeah.
in general, right?
I mean,
Like
yeah.
different races are a thing.
Mm.
Like as in like literally, you can argue like there's races that are xenophobic, but if we're talking like by definition, they're not racist.
Speaking of which, I just remembered Hass about that fantasy project I was doing, so I'm hoping to turn it into like a D&D campaign someday, like as a setting.
Oh,
But, like, oof.
well,
The Born
DMing
Empire
is
being
very
like
hard.
The Born Empire being like supremacists that believe the elves are their ancestors and shit. Yeah, I can't wait to turn that into a setting. But like, oh god,
Well,
I mean, it needs
you'd probably
work.
end up with like a lot of
Yeah,
like I think politically you'll have a lot of people really giving a shit about bloodlines with that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Which
And
will be
like
cool.
we see that in Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
With Elrond and what's her face, the half elf.
Aragorn and
I
Numenor.
forgot
Yeah,
her name. Like it's that whole with the Tolkien focus a lot more on elves being like inhuman and ethereal kind of thing.
yeah,
High
yeah.
elves at the very least, right? Wood elves less so, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
Legolas is meant to be like a foil to them in that kind of way, right? Because it's the whole Middle Earth is in that process where a lot of like fantasy creatures are leaving it.
Yeah.
It's becoming less magical, right?
It's
And
transitioning to the age of men. Yeah.
and coming from like he was someone who fought in the wars, it's hard to not see some influence from that, right?
Yeah.
Like because I think like just like with the amount of new technology at that time, it's just kind of solidifying that point that like as a species pretty much nothing's going to beat us at this point, right?
Yeah.
Unless something like diseases aside, right? There's no like sentient organism really, or like an animal that would be able to beat us in the like typical sense.
And when you look at like Isengard and Mordor with like the whole industrialization thing, it kind of shows like Tolkien growing up in like Warwickshire and seeing it, the countryside disappearing, which is the Shire, and then it gets industrialized. Like there's the last chapter at the end of Lord of the Rings about the Shire, which isn't in the films obviously, but like that always intrigued me.
They kill off
Saruman
early. Because what's supposed to happen is he's kind of taken over the Shire while they've been busy with all their pomp and ceremony, basically. That's essentially what happened. They were all busy doing their own thing that they forgot about the reason they went on their trip. Well, the Hobbits anyway, right? It was mainly to protect the Shire from. At the time, it would like they didn't know, but now they obviously know the horsemen or the riders were the Nine.
The ring wraiths, the
Nazgûl.
Yeah. Oh my god, like, yeah. It's as well the fact that, like, Tolkien came out with all the languages for Lord of the Rings, like, from scratch, or, like, took inspiration, and, like...
He took a lot of inspiration from, like, Welsh and, like, Celtic languages.
Yeah, and it's the fact that we're seeing that in other mediums of fantasy as well, like, people taking the inspiration for that, it's incredible. And I love it. It's just...
I mean, if we're going off fantasy stereotypes, a lot of them just decide that dwarves are just German because of their like focus on technical expertise and engineering, right?
Yeah. Or industry.
Yeah, a lot of people like to tie in languages to these tropes, right?
Yeah. And it's it's something.
And then people from the desert kingdoms are always like Arabian for some reason. I don't take exception to that really, because it is interesting, like people's interpretations of the myths of those cultures. But it's still annoying, right? To have stereotypes of that variety.
Yeah. And
like we have been moving away from that quite a bit. But like I don't think it's a good idea to completely disregard stereotypes.
Yeah.
Because like, if you with a story, just from my experience, if you focus too much on making it unique rather than making it good, you're gonna end up with several problems with your writing.
Yeah.
I won't comment. I don't really know or care about Tolkien, so.
It's all good, honestly.
I mean, you've got some sort of experience with fantasy in general, right, Matt?
Yeah. Some.
Yeah, but like, what level are we talking here?
Not much, but some.
Yeah.
Fair. Like, again, it's not an ideal.
Well, it's not everyone's genre. Yeah.
I'm weird in that I'll read pretty much anything to like romance, fantasy,
he's obviously
sci-fi.
He's obviously a genius author, and he made a hell of a franchise. I just don't. Not my kind of thing. Lord of the Rings. I don't know.
I get that though. Yeah.
To be fair, it's not like he published his writings himself, though. It was his grandchildren or his children, right? Because, like, he never actually finished any of his work. Like, you can count like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit quote unquote finished, but it's like he wasn't
He was
wasn't
writing
done
a
with
sequel
the
to Lord of
universe.
the Rings at one point, but he never finished it.
And he was writing like hundreds of like prequel supplementary material.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I just pretty much my whole point is most of modern fantasy, like hell, even Skyrim and stuff, is basically follows the basis of J.R.R. Tolkien's like work. Basically, that's my argument. But it seems everyone agrees here or doesn't have an opinion on it, so I know could move on. I guess. Yeah.
He definitely heavily influenced the genre.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be exactly what it is without his writings, basically.
I mean, what was the first major fantasy thing? It probably would have been like Lord of the Rings, the books and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I mean, we had like collective myths, like legends and stuff, like
Yeah.
Legend of King Arthur, and just like Celtic monsters and like banshees and stuff like that, right? But I don't think someone had like collected all those like cultural phenomenon, I'd say they were, and like collated them and created their own thing through them.
Yeah.
I think like while I'm unsure if it was actually the first example of that, but it's one of the first, and it's by far the most well known of someone doing that.
Yeah. Right. I guess we can end that. Can't wait to talk about politics. Wow, I hate myself so much. Yeah. Tory U-turn, trickle economics, and barristers on strike. It's pretty much self-explanatory. And Tory Party conference was like this week.
Well,
My
let's
God.
go through it one by one, because I don't really keep a track of this thing myself. Like clearly, I usually just get my news from politics, from like news highlights and stuff. So
Yeah.
go through it one by one.
Yeah. So basically, the premise is the Tories have done a U-turn on their budget. They undid the 45 pence part of their budget because there's some outcry from the Tory Party, and like basically she did it to appease the conference. At conference, she did a nice little speech where she called basically anyone to the left of her position and Kwasi Kwarteng as an anti-growth coalition. So yeah, take away from that what you will.
Oh yeah, I remember actually seeing this. So there were calls for unity, right, among the Tories, right, because they're obviously most of them are not very happy with what Liz Truss and her cabinet's been doing. Everyone who was calling for unity were people from her cabinet.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, her own little clique of like right-wing libertarian economics people, pretty much. Yeah.
Literally nobody outside of her faction.
Yeah. And then she called everyone out for being anti-growth. Like hell, even Rishi Sunak is in that. So, yeah.
Which is fucking hilarious once you realize
so
politics
moronic.
very similar to Truss. Like, in fact, they're pretty much identical, to be honest.
Yeah. And I just think they're just committing political suicide at this rate. It does seem like it.
I mean, hey, everyone's gone for it. Literally, this is probably the weakest government we've had in a while, which is saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else's take on this? I'm curious.
Bunch of dumb fucks, stupid, idiotic, whatever.
Tories being Tories for you.
Oh,
when was the last time you'd say we had a really strong government that got a lot of stuff done?
Fucking 90s, maybe.
20. I wouldn't even say 2010. 2010 was awful.
It was the best government we've had in the last 10 years, but it's in the last 20 years. However, it wasn't good.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still argue New Labour, considering they actually got stuff on education done. Saying things like education actually meant something. Like, actually delivering on something. But we're reaching a point in politics where mottos and slogans actually mean nothing.
Had good education for ages. Honestly, public schools are complete garbage and teach you zero life skills.
But I don't know, meant something at the time, I guess, if you know what I mean. I mean, even saying New Labour, New Brent actually meant something at one point.
It's just the status quo has just become really stale now. No one's willing to even attempt to make any change.
Yeah.
But just the usual promises they will never deliver on.
Yeah. And then yeah, I know. we've seen what this Tory government thinks of trickle down economics. So I put the proposal of trickle up economics. My bad, I'm getting it all mixed up. But the whole premise of that is basically we should help the people at the bottom of our society by giving them money, through welfare and all that. So, they can actually contribute to the economy and actually keep things afloat. But, the Tories want to do the opposite of that. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory at this rate.
Yeah. Seems like they just want to give the rich more money.
Yeah,
at this point.
It's just moronic at this rate.
Just constant tax cuts for them, and the opposite for the normal person.
Yeah.
Which is not the way to actually empower people of a lower economic standing. That's not how that works.
It's why you need to give money to, the working classes and the underclass.
It's the whole teach a man to fish thing, right?
Yeah.
Just giving people money isn't going to help them get out of a slump.
Yeah. You need to give them direction with that, how to use that money. Yeah, pretty much. I agree with that.
You gotta teach them how to get themselves out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because, sure, in an ideal world, we'd give everybody a living wage and everything would cost, a reasonable amount, but, no one would agree to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I always see the problem with this is that if you're trapped in a big loop. If you give people more money, then the prices of items at shops are just going to go up. Because it's going to cost more to distribute it. It's going to cost more to produce it. It's just all the prices go up because you got to understand that when you get more money, oh great, but the people who are distributing your goods, the people who are importing it and all that sort of stuff, all of that goes up in conjunction. So you're still at a loss.
And that's not adding currency conversions and stuff, right? Because not everyone's money is worth the same amount as other people's money, right?
Yeah.
So would you say a universal currency would be a good idea for that thing? We just adhere to a singular currency and just go from there, right?
I've always
what
thought
crypto was supposed to be, wasn't it?
It's what the euro was an attempt at that as well, right?
Yeah.
A universal currency that everyone could adhere to. But and I think we did sign on for that initially, I believe, and then we bailed out of it.
We backed out. Yeah, of course we did. We pretending we're not part of Europe because we're an island or whatever the hell the stupid excuse we come up with at this rate. Yeah. I'm not sure if you heard about this next thing. Have you heard about the barristers on strike? It doesn't surprise me at this rate.
I've heard about the nurses going on strike, and I'm not surprised.
I've heard about the transport workers.
Yeah. Well, as someone who has a law background or whatever excuse to come up for this, right? Basically, what happened is the barristers are on strike because they're not getting paid enough, and the government has a thing for, let's say, if you're a barrister and you take up a case in relation to immigration law, you're somehow labelled as a lefty lawyer for defending immigrant, asylum seekers or whatever. So, the issue doesn't surprise me. This is another group the Tories are just attacking again. Literally. So
it's very 50-50 with a lot of it. There's I have a very controversial opinion on a few of these things because I have a good mate who is a railway engineer, and he's part of RMT, and they're the ones that are striking. Now the train drivers are not striking because they're part of a completely different union. However, the RMT lot, mainly the engineers and all that sort of side of stuff, rail workers. But he pretty much once they come out of an apprenticeship, their basic wage is 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
After 2 years, which is ridiculously high. And whenever I speak to him, he's always like, "Oh yeah, what did you do today? Oh, I sat watching Netflix. There's been no trains in for the past 4 weeks. He hasn't done anything. They just change an air filter every now and again." And then he's obviously saying, "Oh, we're on strike next week." I'm like, "But you don't deserve it. This is the point. RMT and the people within it are already paid too much for the work they do. It's in my opinion. It's a very weird thing. I understand it's more to do with the fact that the government doesn't set their wage. It will be the
It's
companies
private
they work
companies,
for.
yeah.
The private companies. So whereas Northern might get paid well, some of them won't. So fair enough. However, I can understand the point of striking because like the train profits, so the companies that run the trains, their profits have been skyrocketing, whereas their wage has stayed the same for multiple
And the quality
years.
of service is non-existent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of stuff is fair enough, but I mean, in terms of the money they're getting more than enough. It's nurses
Not
won't
distributing it
thing.
correctly, basically.
Not distributing it correctly, of course, yeah. That's fair enough. Nurses really depends. I know some nurses that get paid a hell of a lot of money, some that don't. They should get paid more than railway engineers and railway
But
workers.
it's handled in that case. Are they like hospital by hospital, or is it all just decided? Like,
It's
Mostly
mostly.
decided,
beforehand.
I remember the junior doctor strikes. This was in high school or college, I think, and yeah, it was basically a select group within Unison picking which group should go on strike. Pretty much, that's how it works in Unison specifically, which is yeah.
It's a weird
unusual.
one with their pay as well because
Yeah.
stuff like nurses in like emergency wards and on ICUs and A&E, all that sort of stuff is fair play.
Yeah.
But I mean, you ever go to like an ear, nose, and throat unit or something where you'll see the nurses walking around? I saw one sitting on a desk drinking a cup of tea, and while we were waiting 2 hours for our appointment, 2 hours late, bearing in mind, and all she had to do was stand up, take the folder into the doctor's office, and then when she actually went in there, she stood having a chat with him for another half an hour. It's people like that don't deserve the pay rise. So it's just, it's a very weird one.
Yeah, I get you. But like, yeah, I remember my parents, because they're both nurses, talking about the junior doctor strikes, and guess where all the junior doctors are now?
Doctors?
Junior doctors, yeah.
Yeah, junior
They're not
doctors
here
and
anymore. They're in Australia.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Fucked off,
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to work for the NHS. If they're just gonna be treated like absolute garbage. So what, why work here? Just go to Australia.
And the wages are probably a lot higher in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Because I moved there for a year, and my parents obviously working for like was it Royal Melbourne Hospital. They got paid way more than under NHS payroll. It's ridiculous. Like, because it's all private there as well.
Yeah, they're it's in Australia. It's strange. They value. You'll probably even find stuff like retail workers and bin men that are actually paid a lot more than even our nurses and stuff are, because they actually value the work that people don't want to do. So like the difference in wage between a doctor over there and the bin man over there is not actually as high as you would think.
Supply and demand
Especially
issue,
outside
right?
this
To
country.
some degree. If there's less of people wanting to do a job, right? Higher the pay goes. Like in theory a little bit, right?
You have to incentivize.
But like, and
work,
there are a
don't you?
lot of people who want to work in the healthcare industry, right? I mean, hell, have you ever been to medical school? You like those courses fill up like instantly, dude.
Yeah.
If you're applying for a
competitive.
university or something, compared to like other like things, because like I can pretty much get onto any university's English course unless they have like a specific your grades must be like top 10 or something, right? Because like it's not an issue with spacing, it's more of an issue of like where you'd like to go.
Yeah.
Whereas people in a medical, unless they're like super quick on their application, they're not gonna like. They can't be as picky with it, basically.
Yeah, it's a. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a strange one with pay, especially in this country. It's like, you're sat in like a warehouse all day. Jake can attest to this, and you're getting paid like the bare minimum that you can be to do a job that no one wants to do, because it's just backbreaking, tiring, boring. In fact, you should probably get paid a bit. You should probably get paid more for those jobs, because no one wants to do it.
Yeah.
I've heard from someone who actually moved to Australia, and it was something like the equivalent of like £15-16 an hour to work a warehouse in Australia. Also, you got to think of just quality of life in Australia.
It
It
is
would be
really good.
so
It's
much
only set there.
Awful.
Yeah.
I know, man. I went awful because of all the spiders.
Well, yeah, I don't like the bugs.
Well,
But
yeah.
I think it's very much better to live in sunny
We'll
Australia
say
than it is
though, while
miserable
the
grey
standard
England.
of living is higher in Australia, the cost of living is just as high.
Yeah. Nah, it's well, this trade-off.
It's the same for places like Canada. You need to have like a certain criteria to be met to migrate into certain countries. I think Canada wants something like £200,000 in savings that you can prove that you move into the country with.
Yeah.
And
Same
like
with
no,
Australia. You have to prove to get in that you already have some form of employment before entering on a work visa. Pretty
Yeah.
much, it's the same.
Mm.
And then
And,
there's a threshold for income as well. Same thing as Canada.
because my parents wanted to move to Canada, and when they looked into it, they went to the embassy and they were asking about it, and they said, "Well, have you got any medical conditions?" And my mum said, "Well, I'm diabetic." And the one thing that they would say is, "Well, no, you can't come in then because they don't want you to be a burden on their healthcare
On the
service."
healthcare service because it's
Which
private.
is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, a lot of people who like stirring up hate and stuff use that as a pivot to be like, oh, but well, what are these asylum seekers don't have to go through all these stringent requirements, right? Now, of course, we all know that's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Because they do make sure that you have a legitimate claim before they allow you to seek asylum, right?
It's pure whataboutism, pretty much.
Yeah, basically, right?
Yeah.
If you have like a pretty good standard of living and you want a better standard of living elsewhere, you've got to at least be able to support yourself a little, right?
Yeah.
To go
Is
from
the
this
idea behind it.
to go from this country to some countries where you can go to an incredible standard of living, like to go from this country to America, for example. Like I would have been living in America right now if it weren't for my dad backing out of the deal, because he actually was accepted for a job in Texas for BAE Systems. So all of us would have to move to Texas, to Fort Worth. Now that is all good and well, and I was actually looking forward to it. I wanted to hear if he was going to get it or not, or whatever.
Yeah.
You were telling me about this in high school.
Yeah, it was pretty much confirmed, but he backed out of it. However, if we were to sell our house here, you get about 200 grand, something like that, and then to convert it to dollars, nearly 300. £300,000, especially in like Texas and the area we were looking at, would get you like a 5-bed detached house with like 4 bathrooms, in like the really nice neighborhood. With the money from your cars, you could buy like a Maserati. It was like your standard of living is just incredible. If you go from this country to theirs, because stuff in that country is just, especially like housing and stuff, is just dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the cost of living is a lot higher for not much better standard of living, though.
Yeah.
In America, at least.
Yeah.
New Zealand's a really good example of incredible standard of living.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Like, yeah, their welfare state is just incredible. Like, the amount of support you get from the state.
They actually have a good government, which, like, is fucking impossible in these times, honestly.
God bless the New Zealand Labour Party.
Like, holy shit, like, that is probably one of the most competent governments out there, right?
Yeah.
The thing is with New Zealand is the population's that small, having these changes is so much easier. Like their population, I just looked at it now from 2018, is 4.7 million. And ours at that time was 67.89 million.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to manage 67 million than it is for 4.7 million.
Is it your argumentation based on resources they have to distribute to 67 million people versus 4 million people? Pretty much, yeah.
Distribution, management.
Yeah, it might be easier to do that sort of stuff, but
taking all the money.
it might be easier to do that sort of stuff. However, it will scale. Their economy will be their population might be 15 times smaller, but their economy will also be 15 times smaller. So it's more about not about the population, but rather the way that the government uses it. Whereas our government put it all into offshore funds in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
Whereas theirs, they actually spend it on upgrading infrastructure and giving money to people who need it and all that sort of stuff.
Do you reckon it's a matter of like less corruption then in that case?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
In a smaller community, I guess it's a lot harder to get away with something like corruption, right? Because think like small town politics. Sure, it's obviously a lot higher, but like comparative to other countries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like anything can happen in this country, and you've got one person running 60 million, or whereas over there you've got one person running 4 million.
Yeah.
So like around here, if someone does something wrong, like say the Prime Minister does something wrong, you're gonna have 30 million people saying yes, 30 million people saying no. Whereas over there, you probably get something like a more honest opinion, I guess. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Because like we have so many like more media sources and stuff. Media is a big problem in this country.
Yeah.
Like we have so many more media sources than say New Zealand does. So one newspaper or one company might say, "Oh yes, she's doing the right thing," and another one would say, "Oh no, she's doing the wrong thing." So it's all back and forth, and
there's more disagreement within a larger sample population, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Say an older population as well.
Yeah. Right, moving on.
Overpopulation's a weird word because I think population density is the bigger problem we have in the UK anyway, rather than overpopulation, because we have plenty of empty land just lying around, even with the amount of people we have.
Like the green belt, yeah.
It's just there's no fucking infrastructure there, right?
Yeah.
If you live out there, you've got nothing available to you, which is why everyone wants to move to a city, so you have access to the things, but then everyone's doing that, right?
Yeah. Which is why housing's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's not that there isn't cheap housing available, it's there's no cheap housing available near infrastructure.
Yeah.
I always make this argument with my parents and stuff, like, they don't seem to understand this. It's like, they're building houses, say, around where we live, you'll all be aware of it, you know? Building a hell of a lot of it, but they're not upgrading doctors, they're not making new schools, they're not doing anything like that, it's just...
Who the fuck wants to move there, right?
Yeah, however, I'll always have this argument with my parents, that they'll always say, "Oh, it's terrible, you know, building more houses around here, all this sort of stuff. This government is, this country is, you know, populated and all this sort of stuff, destroying the green land." I was like, where in this country? You can't drive 100 miles in this country without meeting a forest or a large fields or farms or something along those lines. Like, we have so much, like, countryside and... So if you go to like Wales or Scotland, it's like 95% like open land.
I think it's just like insulation, right? If you live in an urban environment, you think everywhere, like subconsciously, you'll think most other places are just urban environments, right?
Yeah.
It's like a level of cognitive dissonance, basically. Right? Until you see it yourself, you won't really believe it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, I take it, are your parents, like, super well-traveled, Matt? Like, do they go around the UK a lot?
They go around the UK a lot, yeah.
Like, would you say more, like, countryside areas or more just urban areas?
They prefer the countryside sort of stuff, but they'll still make the argument that obviously
weird,
too
then.
many...
No, I don't get that, then. That is really odd.
Yeah.
Because, like, while I think we do have more urban land than... urbanized land than countryside land, but, like, the percentage is fine. It's not... to where it's we're not like China bad, right?
Yeah.
Or anything crazy like that. We're not over. I don't think we're over industrializing yet. Yet. We'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there probably. Just like, just with the way technological society works, right?
Yeah.
Everything will be over industrialized, even farming at some point, right? But
so. The urban landscape of England only accounts for around 10% of its actual...
really? Fuck, I guess I was wrong then. Holy shit.
We do have a low forestry cover though. Like, we have like one of the lowest percentage of woodland in Europe.
Okay, Green Party. Calm down.
Yeah, but...
I think it's more that we just don't have the need for it, because we just import a lot of our wood resources.
Yeah.
That's more meaning for like habitats for animals and that. And it annoys me when people say you need to protect like the green belt and that. And I'm like, can we improve it? I mean, there's barely any animals on just a plain field. Maybe there's like an actual forest there.
Spiders.
Shut up, you fit biodiversity in there. There's just a field with a goat on it.
I mean, there's plenty of different. There's plenty of like groups in the
there's
UK that are doing that, like creating biodiversity and stuff. But
trying.
it's the
They're constantly failing targets on it.
it's very hard to balance out all of that stuff. Like, it's a big balancing act in any country between everything.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. Because while we should look after our planet, I don't think that means we should like denigrate our own standard of living either.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
Yeah. Don't like start like. That's it. Don't start like destroying trees to create a new city,
Or like,
but at the
you know,
same
killing
time.
poor people or anything, right? We've seen a lot of these like culling type movies, right? And they like to act like it solves anything.
Well, in the words of Scrooge, just what is it? Something in the surplus population.
Decrease the.
Yeah, decrease the surplus population.
Yeah, but, like, it's a stupid idea, right? Because you just have less people to do jobs that the people who think that kind of shit is a good idea, the jobs they don't want to do. You'll have less people doing those jobs, in which you will have to yourself start doing those jobs. And would that then make you part of that lower class that needs to be cut down, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of politics is stupid as fuck, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at like, talk about like, urbanized areas, oh, it's bad, we have too much urbanization. Some people will argue, but I mean, like, have you ever been to like towns and cities at the moment? How many closed down shops there are?
A lot of local councils are trying to, like, you know, put more green into their urban environments, right?
Yeah.
Although that is more just sort of a beautification attempt rather than, you know.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to like towns and cities now and all these shops that are shut down, buildings abandoned, all this sort of stuff?
Oh yeah, plenty, dude. I mean, Bolton's like probably one of the worst offenders for it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I don't know. Have you
It's
been
so
to League?
deprived. It's such a deprived place.
Yeah,
My
I was just
God.
like, Nero and Jake know what I'm talking about. Fucking hell, like, you just feel like the Breaking Bad filter come on as soon as you enter Bolton.
Yeah.
It's literally why
nobody's going to
You just
Bolton.
don't want to go into Bolton Town Centre. It's just that decrepit and run down. There's nothing
It's
there.
just crap.
There's no investment there. There's
Literally
no need to go
Mordor.
to any
It's
shops in Bolton.
Mordor.
right?
There's nothing. It's
The looks
Mordor.
of it aren't even the problem. It's just the atmosphere in that place is horrible,
It
dude.
used to be okay when we were in
Yeah.
college. It wasn't too
I
bad, but you could
enjoyed
go
it in
and game
college.
and
Especially
Yeah.
like the Market Street down there looked alright, especially when they paved all the houses, made it a little bit more nice.
It's gone back to looking like shite there.
Yeah.
I'll say any place looks nice on a nice.
you could
day.
start another debate on that one about how online sort of like
Online shopping,
purchasing,
like the high
shopping
street.
is
It's
just
taking
destroying-
over the high street. Yeah.
yeah.
I will say to some degree, going out shopping is a completely different experience than ordering something online, though.
Yeah.
Like, it is fun is a stretch, but it's like, because that depends on, like, you know, who you go with, what your hobbies are, kind of thing, right? But it is a different experience to go in person and like go window shopping and stuff, right?
Yeah.
How much?
Or like, you know,
in-
going
into a
into
shop.
a Games Workshop, right?
Yeah.
For using a nerdy example, right?
Mm.
Like, Games Workshop's fun as fuck, especially when you go in, and they usually host events and stuff over there.
Right. I'm curious. Have any of us covered what's going on in Ukraine? I mostly put this on Matthew because he loves the
Funny.
stuff.
Shoot, bang, bang.
Yeah.
I can do it in the form of a Family Guy, Ollie sort of like news report.
Do it.
What's going on in Ukraine, Ollie? Russia losing. Yeah, there you go, done.
But have you heard about this nice little
Bridge in Crimea?
Yeah. Got
Yes.
attacked. Oh.
I remember
that's
talking about
funny.
it with somebody, how I thought, like, if the Ukrainian forces wanted to attack that bridge, it'd be a bad idea.
Mm.
It
'Cause while
wouldn't be
yes,
though.
it
It's
doesn't
their
have-
bridge.
No. The reason being I said that, right, is sure, while it severs a lot of infrastructure, right, you run into twofold problems. Severe retaliation, because that bridge was quite important to Russia as well, right?
Yeah.
That's happening
And,
in
like,
Kharkiv, isn't it?
B, they're
Over in
fucking
Bolton.
over their own infrastructure for when the war stops, right?
Mm.
And it's the same
Yeah.
problem with hitting infrastructure targets in general, right?
Yeah.
You risk greater retaliation from the enemy forces that hold it, right? Because, you know, they're using that infrastructure, right? And they would need it for when they take over the land, and vice versa. You also need that infrastructure yourself.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like, I can see why it'd be a good strategic target as well, right? Because they they can't resupply as easy now.
Well, I'm reading. I just read an article. I'm not saying I believe it or I don't, because I honestly have no idea. But the Ukrainians are not claiming that they did it.
To be fair, even if they did, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because like there are a lot of investors that would probably not like that.
Yeah.
It's a very 50-50 one. I mean, I quite like that. It's a good thing that they've done it, if they did do it or whatever. I mean, it's just cutting off major logistical lines again from Russia into Ukraine. So
I guess I'm thinking more bigger picture myself then, rather than just them actually needing to win.
Oh no, you're not overthinking it. That is a pretty valid argumentation point to make. Like, the retaliation from Russia is more likely to be worse.
I mean, they've immediately struck a civilian apartment building, right? They killed 17 people.
Wasn't that in Kharkiv, or am I mistaken?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, obviously it wasn't in the same area, right? So they could, but like
it was in what's it called? Zap something? Zaporizhzhia.
I don't know. Right? And while I don't have any evidence that that's a retaliatory strike, it very well could be, right? Because like Russia had laid off civilian targets for a while now. Like,
yeah, but I mean,
it's strikes on them like this one.
It's a weird one. You got to do what you got to do in order to win a war, and destroying their points of logistics.
You can always rebuild stuff you break, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can always rebuild stuff that breaks.
So to say that about 10 minutes ago, apparently sirens have been sounding all over Ukraine. 10 minutes ago, for aerial threat, sirens sounding in every major city across Ukraine. Oh, well, towards the west, not the east.
Towards the west.
It's just I hate the situation, man. It's really fucked.
Yeah.
Like, what were they hoping on getting out of this? That everyone would just be like, yeah, okay, fair enough, and not get involved?
I don't know.
Like, and like you've seen that, like, according to an anonymous, an anonymous insider, one of his Putin's inner circle proper had a go at him about it. Like, come on, what the fuck?
Yeah. Didn't he get arrested or disappeared, quote unquote?
No, he's part of his inner circle, so
right.
Assuming, given he's one of his top advisors, you can get away with that shit, right?
Yeah.
But like, there was an insider who's revealing this sort of information, basically. And like, he's like, just questioning the motive really at this point, because the motive isn't anymore like, quickly take over the land that belongs to us. You're fighting a full-scale war now, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot harder to convince investors and business people to go along with this shit. And like, with them bringing back the draft, everyone is fucking leaving as well, right?
Yeah.
They've started playing Escape from Tarkov IRL, bro.
Yeah, they're all just fleeing Crimea as well, aren't they? So.
Yeah, like
wouldn't.
This isn't good for anybody anymore. It's not even good for Russia anymore. Who cares if they fucking take it? They're gonna have a ridiculous amount of rebels in their own territory for ages, so all the infrastructure's fucking damaged. What are you taking over? More fucking land that you can't use? Isn't that 90% of your country already?
Yeah.
Tons.
And then you're gonna be wasting money on taxpayers' money on keeping these regions together.
If they wanted more land, you probably could have just spent the money to develop the fucking frozen tundra that you own, and it would have cost you less than whatever the fuck this is costing you now, right?
Yeah.
Way
this
too
is
much.
Putin. He believes in this brilliant paper he wrote that Ukraine doesn't exist and it just belongs to Russia because they have common heritage, quote unquote, or whatever he wrote in that stupid.
Like
article.
I said, his motivations don't mean shit anymore. It's costing him too much money. I don't understand why he's putting his foot down. He must really have gone senile, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no sane human would keep going with this.
Yeah.
No, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's a strange Don. He's a strange Donny.
Yeah.
They've started attacking all the areas, like especially like Kharkiv and stuff like that they've started attacking around there again through Russia itself. Or they're trying to. They're shelling that area.
Yeah.
So you could see them probably like break. You might be able to break. Russia might be able to like break off and start attacking through different points. Maybe even try another lightning attack towards Kyiv again.
Yeah.
It's like a little blitzkrieg sort of play.
It'd be a good distraction. It'd be a good play, but I don't think that the Russian military or leaders have the brain in order to pull off a war. So, or
And
even
honestly,
tactics.
right? They don't have clear logistical lines.
No. That's one of the good things that what Ukraine have been doing is have just been absolutely destroying any form of lines of logistics. Even if it's inside Russia, they're just destroying any logistics lines they can.
Yeah. And then there's a whole annexation ploy as well, which is just for political, domestic morale boosting, pretty much, in the hopes of, oh wow, we annex these territories. This war's going great for us, guys. Literally, like they don't even hold 90% of whatever the hell they annexed.
No, they don't. They don't hold. It's never going to be thingy, is it? Like, valid.
Yeah. It's the same with Crimea still. It's like, sure, it's de jure part of Ukraine, which, like, in law it's part of Ukraine, but de facto is under Russia. Like, no one recognizes it in international law. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. I mean, I think if Ukraine get towards winning this war, they'll probably. I mean, that bridge that's supposedly been attacked, to be honest, needs to be removed. Completely be removed. If Ukraine want any hopes of, say, taking back Crimea after this whole war is over, which I think they should carry on and go down. They need to completely destroy that bridge, regardless of how expensive it was or investors or anything like that. It needs to be gone because that is just a direct link, trains and cars, straight into Ukraine through Russia. So it doesn't serve any other purpose other than that, especially at the moment. So.
Yeah, it's just a bridge to resupply into Crimea.
Pretty much. Logistics, And
the Crimea is just a forward operating base to try and take Kharkiv, pretty much, or hold it at least.
Yeah.
And then,
well, Kherson was Kharkiv over the other side,
isn't it? Yeah. And then they're pretty much going to probably try and take Odessa at this rate. You know, Putin's got more bodies to throw at it. So,
they're nowhere near Odessa, and they never will be. There's no way for them to get anywhere near it at the moment. The only way to get anywhere near it would be to go all the way around Mykolaiv, whatever that is.
Or you could navally invade it, but that's going to be costly.
They could navally invade it, but it's in open water in it, so
yeah.
And that whole part of the sea is going to be completely occupied by NATO forces at this point because it's surrounded by NATO allies. So
yeah, Turkey's there.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, wow, we've really exhausted all our topics. We're on the last one, lol. Overwatch 2.
Not played it.
Really? Has no one here played it? Wow.
What's this?
Overwatch 2. Overwatch.
I've played a little bit with Nathan, and the RNG element of teammates went up a lot more. It's a lot more. It's easier to get pissed off at the game because
right.
You're relying on one tank, and if that one tank is horrible, you lose. And especially in competitive game modes, the quality has just dropped immensely, right? Because if your tank doesn't pick a shield tank, you're at an inherent disadvantage.
So what have they changed? Like, I know they got rid of 6v6 for 5v5 by dropping a tank.
5v5 healers have regen now, and they boost so if they're out of combat for a bit, they heal.
Right.
They boosted healers' defenses and base stats a little bit, so they're tankier. So it makes Brigida more powerful, but she's so far out of the meta it doesn't matter. They've added 3 new characters.
The Junker Queen, Sojourn, whatever she's called, and then
Kiriko.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kiriko's quite fun, very similar to Moira in that she is like
DPS.
She's an off healer who can do a lot of damage, but she's got really good movement ability. So while Moira has shift, right, she can teleport to allies in range, and it's at about the same cooldown, right?
I mean, I'm not sure if you guys played Overwatch 1, but like...
I played the hell out of that game.
Oh yeah, I played it
Yeah.
fuck tons. I mean, I had a lot of problems when they announced Overwatch 2. I was going to say that if they were going to make it a paid game, it would have flopped quicker than, well,
Cyberpunk.
it's quick.
I mean, the thing is, it's still not good, right? If you want to unlock the new character, which is Kiriko, right? You have to hit level, like, you have to get halfway through the battle pass, which has 100 tiers, right? You have to play 3 games minimum to go up 1 tier, and that's at, like, level 1 to 3.
Huh.
You literally have to play upwards of, I don't know, 1,500 games.
They've added, they've
going.
made
if
it.
you didn't have the original game, you have to earn all the base Overwatch 1 characters. You have to earn them through that system as well. Unless you had the game previously.
It is very stupid that, I mean, what they've done is they've had to make it free because there would have been a backlash if they didn't make it free, because it's all it is an update to the first Overwatch. There's nothing different in that sense.
And it's a massive money grab as well. So you can't earn currency for skins anymore. You have to buy it.
They've added, in order to get out of the backlash of making it a paid game, because it's just an update, they've added a little buttload of microtransactions. They've essentially done what I like to call an EA.
Yeah.
And not even EA has ever been this bad, though. You can at least play the game and earn cosmetics in an EA game, right?
Yeah, by grinding, yeah.
And, like, I wouldn't say EA has a reasonable grind, but it's more reasonable than this.
Yeah.
Like I say, the new Assassin's Creed games are a horrible example of EA microtransactions gone wrong, but in a very different way. Because EA microtransactions currently are a lot more pay for convenience, right? And they'll punish you if you don't pay for that extra convenience, right? They make you grind because you didn't pay, kind of thing, right? Whereas this is, they'll just put a ridiculous grind objective, or you can pay money to get rid of it, right? There's a very slight difference here, but this is more just like from the get-go on with Overwatch 2. Basically the same. You won't be able to have skins if you don't play. Whereas EA is more like, you'll be able to do this, we'll just make it completely unreasonable so you feel like you want to pay. Which, you can vote on which is more scummy. I personally think the Overwatch 2 is more scummy because it just doesn't let you do the thing.
I mean, the only reason we got Overwatch 2 was because they couldn't balance the game properly in the first place. I mean,
making it 5v5 immediately just made it a worse game because it's not unique in that respect anymore. Every game
because every game is 5v5, yeah.
And like I said, they've made non-shield tanks in comp fucking useless. What the fuck is a Roadhog gonna do versus like a Sigma, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck he's gonna do versus
Reinhardt?
Reinhardt?
This is someone who mains Sigma, like, he's a must pick, like, because of the shield barrier, pretty much.
Fucking like with Orissa's rework, right? She's fucking great. Hell, she wasn't even that bad before. She just didn't have a high pick rate, and now like they've fixed all the problems that led to her having a low pick rate, right? And like I played a lot of Orisa in Overwatch 1, so it's annoying they've changed her, but like I can figure that shit out, right? It's just I don't get why they made that decision at the very least. Every other decision I can sort of understand.
Like, didn't it all start with the Brigitte introduction in Overwatch 1, pretty much, and it all just went downhill from there, and then they added the role locks as well.
I mean, Brigitte is still trash, like, completely useless.
Yeah.
Like,
Brigitte is because everyone when she was OP when she came out on release, right, in Overwatch 1, so they had to do something about it.
By design, she's a character that can't be strong. Just at all. If Brigitte is ever strong in the meta, something is wrong.
Yeah.
Because she's very much a feast or famine character. In the right environment, right, she will be played every single game.
Yeah.
And it's why a lot of people complain about healers like Moira or hell even Kiriko, right? They're annoying, but they will not have they don't have as much of a variation. They will always be good.
Yeah.
They will never be like
subpar,
broken.
Yeah.
But they'll never be like Giga Omega broken, but they'll never be subpar either. They'll always be good, right? Whereas like Zen is entirely a skill champion, so Baptiste is also always good because of the immortality field and that alone. shuts down a lot of burst comps. Ana's good utility, and like paired with a good DPS, you nano boost them, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much wipe an entire team, right?
Mm.
Mercy, I don't need to say anything.
Just pocket, yeah, literally.
Basic, dude. Like, you will always. She's a main healer. You will always have top healing.
So Overwatch 2 is basically if they actually balanced Overwatch 1 properly, which they could have just done.
It's not balanced. I'm gonna disagree with you there. If anything, I'd argue they made the game more imbalanced, honestly. Sojourn, the new DPS, his charge shot can one-shot pretty much anybody. I don't even think this is an ult ability, and he has multiple shots of it. It just straight up kills you.
Oh, his right click, yeah.
It just kills you from full HP. If he hits you, dead. Oh, well, if she hits you, dead.
And doesn't he have like high amounts of like damage per second as well because of the railgun in general?
Yeah. Like the Junker Queen and Kiriko, decently balanced, right? But I've not seen using like top level play. Sojourn is just complete fucking bullshit. It's like if Soldier's grenade just killed you. Flat.
It's almost like Blizzard doesn't know how to balance for crap for the life of them. Like, literally. Yeah.
And like, Reinhardt is still the most broken piece of shit in the world. He can hold 2 fire strikes now.
Why?
They upped his damage, and of course he got the standard tank buff, so his shield has more HP, and he has more HP as well. He 2 shots pretty much every squishy. You just die. And like, I'm talking like squishy as in you don't have 250 health, you just fucking die if he swings at you twice, and then Fire Strike does 100 damage flat, you get hit by 2 of those, you die as well.
Hell yeah.
You can control his charge better now, so it's like a Scion ult instead of just straight lines. So you can drift around corners and catch people.
I think the only thing I liked about Overwatch 2 was the new game modes, the push or whatever.
I'm not done. Oh. You know Reinhardt's Shatter Strike, his ult?
Yeah.
It has a bigger range.
Why?
It does more damage as well.
Oh, God.
They can hit you with it and slap you once and you die.
So our takeaway from this is it's pretty much just a downgrade of Overwatch 1, and it's worse. It is
just a worse game. And like, because it's a free-to-play game, hackers and stuff like that's going to be infinitely more of a problem.
Yep.
And I mean, Con was also telling me that because of all the porn parodies of Overwatch, they've encrypted all of their character models.
Nice.
So instead of spending time making the game good, they've wasted time with useless things like that, because they'll break the encryption anyway and get your character models.
Yeah.
Right? But, they're more worried about that kind of thing than their game itself.
Nice. Actual morons. Oh, God. Right.
And trust me, the only reason I'm playing is because my friends play.
Yeah,
I'm not playing because I'm playing on my own.
Someone just mentioned it in this server, Overwatch 2, and I was like, yeah, I'll play it, I guess. But yeah, I digress. I don't know how to feel about it.
Relationship with Overwatch to begin with. There's always just, I'll play it, I guess.
Yeah.
It never was my favorite game, and this just kind of solidified that, right? It won't ever be my favorite game now.
Yeah. I'm wondering what other topics we can cover. If you guys have anything in general we can add.
I'd like to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Omega Strikers.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting take on so you have MOBA-esque characters, right? So you have a character, they have 4 abilities, which is your basic attack, and then you have your 3 actual abilities, which do
and then
stuff,
one's your ult, right?
But it's an ice hockey game.
Oh.
So
an ice hockey game.
So you've got all of the interactions with your abilities hitting the ball. You could also knock each other out of the rink, which puts you on a little respawn timer. You can do damage to each other and break your stance, which makes it easier to knock you around. And then with the abilities, right, it adds that extra layer to the game. So like you can create there's some abilities that create terrain. You can like block locations off, so it's harder to get the ice hockey puck in and stuff like that. It's really fast paced as well, right? So like I don't know. I think like for me personally, I find it to be a very good mix of like strategy and just mechanical skill a little bit, right?
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
I don't know. Yeah. It's not much
definitely
to
check
add to
it out
say.
if you haven't already. Because it's
Omega
free on Steam.
Strikers.
It's free on Steam.
It's free on Steam.
Completely free on Steam.
Really? Omega Strikers. Oh, damn. Yeah. Okay. Anime as well, lol.
It'll be up
With the
your
art
alley
style.
if you want to play it. Yeah.
Yeah. What else? I'm not sure anyone
I mean,
here cares about F1. I'll probably just do a separate podcast for F1, lol.
Next week.
Yeah. Well,
next
Max
week.
Verstappen world champion once again.
Nah.
And
I have no comment on this one.
Yeah. All right. Might as well leave it there. There's not much to add, and we've hit an hour, I think. So, yeah. Bye. I live through existential dread.
The fuck was that, by the way?